From the Spacebird Media Studios, it's Roxanne and Ace Unlimited.
Well, welcome, Roxanne and Ace Unlimited. You made it to Black Friday, so therefore you must have made it through Thanksgiving. Hopefully you are feeling thankful and blessed and stuffed. I am so stuffed. I'm so stuffed. But it's all good. I still have a big turkey leg in the fridge. I'm going to eat it later. But thanks to My Brother's Cup and Birmingham Mortgage Group, we are ready for a great show. Roxanne, how was your Thanksgiving?
Absolutely wonderful. Lots of time with family, lots of great food. Anything my sister-in-law makes is just sigh worthy. And I tell myself every year, I'm not going to have 82 helpings. And Thanksgiving is not a time to worry about calories.
Right.
You just enjoy it thoroughly. That was wonderful. Black Friday doesn't feel like Black Friday, though. You know, normally we're up at 4 a.m. and we hit it, but Black Friday's been going on for weeks. Let's face it.
Well, especially with online deals, like they tease you like, hey, we're going to give this to you a little earlier. You get a text message, which only stresses me out. That's why I'm glad Eliza Huie is coming to talk about I'm Stressed, her book, because like I need to not let the thought of Christmas shopping stress me out, because this year with the way my holidays and my gaming schedule and the kids shows and stuff, like I'm having to go to Michigan a couple of weeks before Christmas. So I have to be ready even sooner. And then as soon as I get back from there, it's Christmas here. So I'm just like, serenity now, serenity now. Like I just have to stay in zone. But I will say, I always say this, like I love the flavors of Thanksgiving so much. So I'm like, man, we should really do like a little mini, feast in July, instead of Christmas in July, let's do, because they're just good together. Right. But then I realize we eat so much of it in a day and a half that we're like, yeah, I don't want that again. Can we wait till November? So I understand why we have it only once a year.
Now, a lot of people can't do sweet potatoes. I couldn't well into adulthood, but now I love them. And
Yeah.
I'm surprised the number one thing people don't want to have on Thanksgiving is green bean casserole. I love green bean casserole.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but Tawny and the kids like it. So we've added it to our menu. So that's one of the things that she makes. And then I've also surrendered the dressing because she likes to make it with white bread versus cornbread. So I'm like, that's fine. I'll do everything else. And I will say this too. The thing, like this year we had a lot fewer people during the meal part of it. So it was, very intimate conversations. We felt like we really got some quality time together. But then, of course, the last night was just kicking. Like that's when everybody's already been to their family and they stop by on their way home and like, we just want to come by and say hi, we're like, come on in. So we're playing games and, music's playing or the game was on and, it's just, and of course it's rivalry weekend. So, whatever team you pull for, you're playing your, nemesis this weekend. And it's just, shaking things up for the college football playoffs. Of course, my Vols still stand a chance. I'm going to be a stress ball on Saturday, but it'll be all good and I'll be okay.
With your little nose the way it is, I won't want to tell you what I thought you said when you said Vols, but
yes, I am post-nasal drip because my kids brought a cold home from the theater, passed it around, and I'm the last to get it. So I'm on the back end of, the phlegm, but that's why I'm channeling my inner Barry White. I'm gonna, go read the Bible to a bunch of grade school kids tomorrow.
Well, I thank you for still being willing to do this, even when you're a little under the weather. I appreciate it. Speaking of under the weather, you sent me the TikTok on it, and I held my breath because I love TD Jakes, the Potter's House, Dallas. I've met him and cried with him. Another story, but he was delivering a sermon, and they warn you he's convulsing.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrifying, and it was live. So all of these men in suits, these big men in suits, come and jump on him, and the live broadcast stops. And all they would say about it was a medical emergency. Well, hello, that's obvious. Can you just tell us what's going on?
Yep.
That's at this point, at this taping, all we know. But we're praying for him, and his children are so crazy about him, and they were so upset. So to be in the middle of a sermon.
I can't imagine. It's a lot. And then you top that with losing Chuck Woolery. I don't think there's a Gen Xer that did not grow up watching, 2 and 2. We've had 2 and 2. Like that's just a
So cute.
staple, love connection. Like I didn't even like the show. I just liked
No.
him and he was the best at that.
So cool and so smooth and in the Game Show Hall of Fame for a really good reason is because he
Yeah.
never looked rattled. He was always smiling, just a really cool dude, was having breathing difficulties at 83 years of age and has passed away. So, something we need to talk about. We need to talk about, do you think that you're going to gain the Lord's favor by doing more work and additional effort? Now, I'll speak for myself. I'm a very type A person. So I can get into this trap. I used to think, well, God's going to be mad at me. I'm kind of over that. The whole Joyce Meyer, God is not mad at you, is finally drilled into my head.
Right.
But I do sometimes think I could be doing more. He could use me more. I need to be more available. What am I doing?
Yeah.
Am I having any, and then it piles up to where I'm Martha at the party. I'm the coordinator. I'm busy putting everything together. I'm the recipe lady. I have
Mhm.
Christmas laid out, the whole table set 2 days
Right.
before. I can be Martha in a second. And I want to be more Mary. I want to take my life savings and pour it over Jesus' feet. And I want to be in awe and enraptured and not worried about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, but I can speak from the other side of the coin as someone who's, worked in ministry a long time and like given up time with family and given up things that really was places I should have been. And in my head, in my heart, I was saying, well, I'm doing this for the Lord, so he understands why I'm not with my family and I'm, missing things or whatever. And of course, I can't go back and get that back, but I'm very diligent now about that work, life balance so that because we can't just say, well, I'm doing it for the Lord. He'll understand I'm busy. No, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
expects you to, still make time for the things that matter most. I mean, I had a thing like that this past Sunday where, we just happened to be in a situation where the band wasn't needed because we were doing something special. And it worked out because my daughter needed me to help her with her car. And so, in order for me to be available for that, the Lord freed up my time even before I knew I needed that. So, I try to be aware of those situations so that I can be present in the things that are so I'm not missing my calling, but I'm also doing my purpose.
My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand.
Mm.
I and the Father are one. John 10, verses 29 through 30. Just think that when you think, I'm out of reach, does God hear me? Are we
Mhm.
close? Am I doing enough? And all of that angst. I'm so glad Eliza Huie is going to talk about stress and
Right.
angst because we get it. And that's not him. He
Yeah.
wants us to bask in him and to just worry about today. Tomorrow has its own issues. All
Amen.
right, the top 10 reasons couples break up, how to avoid them. I love how this author, he's actually a pastor, puts this highly problematic thoughts. And I thought, well, what does he really mean by that?
Yeah.
Well, when first married to Wayne, if he had what I assumed was a moody text or took 3 hours to answer me,
Hmm.
I would flip out a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed to admit it because he was always in a meeting or appalled that I would be stressed. There
Right.
wasn't an issue, but it was like I was making an issue.
Mm.
And so problematic thoughts are something we need to defeat.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, communication, whether it's miscommunication verbally or in our head, we overthink something
Mm-hmm.
and then something that never really was an issue at all is,
Yes.
and that's the thing is, and I will say this is what I love about my relationship with Tawny is she and I talked through all of our triggers because, when you've been married before and you've failed at things, especially when it's towards the end, you don't want to repeat it. You want to learn from it, but you also don't want a trigger to take you back because this is also another person, right? So anything that might look a resemblance is just either your own trigger Or it could be the enemy going, see, she's no different. He's
Huh?
exactly like so and so, And
Yes.
so we have to be careful about that. So communication is key. And I'm also a firm believer, and I don't know if you and Wayne do this, but when things feel off, like you talk about it. Like Tawny and I are always like, hey, can we have tonight just you and me? Because like I feel like we've just been disconnected the last couple of days with all the things going on. And of course, I'm feeling it too. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do that, And so we'll put on a movie and get some popcorn and, just cuddle or whatever or talk. And then we have to do that in order for our relationships to really thrive.
It's a temperature check. That's what you're
Yeah.
doing. You're checking in when you feel something a little bit off. Lingering resentments. Boy, we women can remember something you did wrong 42 days ago.
Yeah.
And we might still be festering. And I just want again to realize the glorious thing that being married to Wayne is. I mean, he's just so kind and wonderful. And if I have a lingering resentment, it really is my problem. And if I'm
Yeah.
going to linger with something, then I'm ruminating on it, then I'm making myself miserable. It's like kicking yourself. Why would you do that? And again, as you said, bring it up. Let's discuss it. Let's get through it. Emotional or physical disconnection, there are so many reasons for that. But when you lose the physicality in your marriage, is physicality a word? I'm
It
going to
is
make it a
on this
word.
show. It
It
is.
is?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
On this show, physical. But when you lose that desire to just, oh, you're so hot, or I can't wait to be that part of it,
Yeah.
the physical part of it, many marriages are just friendly.
Well, so I'm going to out myself, and I'm not exaggerating this story.
Okay.
This is exactly how it happened. Tawny and I had a really great day together. This is probably a couple of weeks ago now, and I was asking a rhetorical and I don't even know where it came up or how it came up, but it was. I asked. I said, we still have the hots for each other, right? We're still hot, and I was asking it rhetorically because I wanted her to go, of course, and she took it the other way. She was like, "Are you saying that we're not hot? Are you saying that you don't have the hots?" I was
Oh,
like, "Absolutely not." And so ever since then, it's kind of become after I ate some crow. Ever since then, it's kind of become like the trigger. Like when there's something, she's like, "You know why that's happening? Because we're hot. We're hot." I was like, "You're right, baby. We're hot."
well, for me, one of the things that's really hot is intelligence.
Mm,
That is what Turan Newell has. In addition to being a godly man and a family man and just an overall good guy,
yeah.
he is really putting his heart and soul into getting you to your goals. You might see him and your credit is, and he works with people to get them to the point where it's not E and ah.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing to see. And I think God's blessed him so much now working in Alabama and Florida just with a really fabulous business is because of his good, kind heart. People know his sincerity and
Hmm.
his authenticity.
Yeah, it's always great to know that he's can be your broker. He can help you get the perfect interest rate. He can find the special program that meets your needs. But you don't have to drive past that house where you're like, oh, honey, it would be so great if we could afford that. Well, find
Mhm.
out if you can afford that and then go look at it after he's helped get you pre approved. So check him out today. You can call 205-259-1656 or go to bhammortgage.com.
So it's the new trend to be rude, super rude, just unbelievably ugly on social media. Why? You're just typing away. Person, you're never going to have to see them. You don't have to have a face to face.
Yeah.
And so for many celebrities, there's one named Lena Dunham, is a comedian. Uh, she's had "You're ugly, you're fat, why are you alive?" I mean, there's an author that has people say, "You have a doggy face, you're brain dead."
One of the
And
things
if,
that Yeah,
go ahead.
one of the things that and I watch it because they use it in a comedic moment, but it hurts my heart to think that people are having these thoughts. But Jimmy Kimmel will do the mean tweet, celebrity tweets, and then the celebrity that
Yes.
it's about will read it on the air, and then they'll respond to them. And some of them it's with a proverbial middle finger or, whatever, or they'll laugh it off like, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, I guess I do look
Mhm.
like that. So, but again, And this is why I really do honestly hate social media for that very reason, is that it is that anonymity. That was a post not too long ago on a musician's page that I follow, a guy looking for musicians to be in a band with, and he goes in this whole tirade of what he's willing to do and not do because it's his band. But then he didn't even put his name. So he's anonymously saying all these things, and all these other musicians are chiming in, going, well, good luck with that band you're never going to have. Because the rules, it's the whole reason why musicians decide not to be in bands anymore. It's like, well, this is not worth it. And so, again, and that's an extreme situation, but I feel like there's a lot of those, especially in the cultural climate of the politics and those kinds of things as we head into 2025. There's a lot of people that are just pissed, you know, and they love to share it. And whether they put their name attached to it or not, we have to chill out. That it's so much in God's hands that I really hope people will just relax in the new year so that we can stop being mad at each other.
Well, and stop being cruel. When I was in radio, a guy wrote to the sports station. I was the only female regularly on a sports station, which is a joke because I don't know anything about sports,
Right.
which was part of the fun of it.
Sure.
And a guy wrote to the radio station and the managers and several of the guys that work there and said that Roxanne, she is so fat. Why don't you just feed her more donuts and fatten her up even more? And then he called me a name that you call a female body part. And I back then was super, super sensitive about how I looked. I'm kind of over that at this point. I want to be pretty, but if you don't think I am, let's move on down the road. I wear wigs. I wear too much makeup. I love Jesus. Just have a nice day. It's okay. So I've evolved I think you get to a certain age where you're just going to be you and you're okay with, what you
Right.
can change and what you can't. And you're just happy to be alive. There's that. But sure enough, that person thought they were anonymous. They used their real email and they got a knock, knock, knock at the door with don't ever say this about her again.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
And so we think, at that time, I didn't handle it well. And you see, all these years later, I still think about Fat Donut Girl. I do.
No, and it's a trigger. But the thing I will say, and this is probably where I get most frustrated about social media, is that now we live in a day and age where there is enough of a generation that doesn't know a time without it as a venting board.
Mm-hmm.
That
Oh,
they
yeah.
think that it's the norm, that it's okay to just, well, I'm just going to go and just, blast my boss or blast my coworkers or blast my siblings or, my neighbor. Why? Like, it's not, you're going to blast and then it's only going to make things worse because then you have to backpedal or you have to delete the post and then eat some crow. And like, I understand the emotions of a situation of how you feel about something or someone may be valid, may not be. It may be your own ego and jealousy of someone else who is more talented or as talented as you. Why not partner and love them? And Roxanne does this all the time of the mindset of that if we look at everyone and say, that is a child of God, we are a child of God. If we look at each other that way, we can be kinder, we can care about what they're going through. And maybe when people say dumb stuff like what they said to Roxanne, maybe that person's going through something because someone else hurt them. And so hurting people hurt people, right? So,
Exactly.
and I know when in the moment you're like, you want to lash back. But again, I don't want to misrepresent Christ just because someone else chooses not to have character. So you want to be rude online? Great. I'll just unfollow you. It's not, I don't have anything to prove. I don't have anything. If you don't like me or we don't get along, we can agree to disagree. But that doesn't mean that I don't still maybe want to hang out or go get a burger or watch the game together. Just because we disagree on some things doesn't mean we can't agree on other things.
Well, and how would Jesus respond?
Yep.
You get slapped. You love your enemy. You do the opposite of what you would normally do, which was to be filled with sorrow or revenge, two
Right.
things that aren't going to get you very far. God's word has a lot to say about the tongue, as we know. Joel 3:10 says, let the weak say, hear the difference, say, I am strong. The one thing with our destiny that gets us in the most trouble And in all the preaching and speaking I've done at women's conferences over the years, I am not worthy always comes up. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, when we think it is one thing, but when we speak it out loud, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to have what I want.
Right.
Here's a good one. There are no good men left, which is a lie. And when you say it, I think it comes back to you. I just do. We have got to watch the power of our words. We have got to believe I am more than a conqueror through him who loves me. I am the head and not the tail. I can do all things through him. The difference, our speech, the difference, our tongue, our words have power.
Yeah. And I also say, too, we do this in the house all the time. And while it may sound like a joke, it has really become the thing that keeps us all in check. If my wife says something negative about herself, I'm like, hey, don't talk about my wife that way. Or if
Oh,
the kids say, I'm like, hey, don't talk about my son and daughter that way. Like, it's them talking about themselves, of course, but I don't want them to let that negativity stick because it's like, it's like nails in a board. I can take the nails out, but there's still a mark that negative thing left. And then that's all we see are the blemishes, right? I was talking with a friend this week about, like when we look at a mirror, like what do you look at when you see, like, do you go straight to the zit that's right in the middle of your forehead, or or the mole that is starting to form on your
mm-hmm.
chin or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or do you look at the whole thing and go, I look good today, or hey, I got some crow's feet but my wife thinks it's sexy. It's like, it's like we got to let some of those things roll off. But again, you're so right, like words have power when we give it power.
Exactly. So we just gotta turn to Jesus. What
Mhm.
does he think of us is what matters the most.
Amen.
Starbucks has removed what were considered foul drinks from their menu. It happened back in November,
Yeah.
early November, because they didn't want these oil infused drinks that the founder of the company decided, Howard Schultz decided would be a good idea out of nowhere. They use extra virgin olive oil in these drinks. I would have tried it. I really kind of like olive oil.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm weird.
Sure.
And I like different drinks. So I would have tried it, but it's already gone because, again, Starbucks is really local coffee companies are making some gains on them
Yeah.
because people don't like the lines and the complications.
Well, and what's happening is they're also discovering the Roxanne blend of coffee. And they're like, man, this is what I want all the time. And especially with the holidays, because that was what I love is like, having the food that we had, for Thanksgiving. Like it was a perfect accent with the coffee cake because you got the little bit of pecan and a little bit of butterscotch. And it's just a nice aroma, nice ice. Because I like when people come in and go, what coffee is that? Like they know that it's different than anything they've ever had. So I love that it's available and it does great things ministry wise as well.
Yes, sends missions teams all around the world to proclaim the gospel of Jesus in places like Burma, where maybe they haven't heard his name. We got to change that. MyBrothersCup.com, click on the Roxanne blend. It'll make you or somebody you love happy. Well, manicured nails make me happy. Now, Ace, these are like mood rings. They
Yeah.
change colors on the tips and the body of the nails.
Okay.
I kind of love, they're weird. I kind of love them. I would like to get decals, but I'm not going to pay $58 to have decals.
Right.
But I do love getting my nails done. It is a luxury. It is expensive. I
Yep.
try to keep the cost down. I try to make it last as long as I can. Being a gardener, I try to be really careful. But here's the thing, they're regularly doing rainbow gel manicures for $255. $255.
Wow. That's like a car payment. That's crazy. Like, I mean, and again, if you're in a financial place that you can do it, or maybe it's gifted at the holidays, so it's your one big treat of the year, or whatever, great. But I cannot imagine. Like, I even feel bad when I go get a haircut and it's $30 because, like, I got like 5 hairs. So it's like, I shouldn't be paying so much. Like, it's like, can I just get the Flowbee and just, like, make it
No,
1985 again?
Wayne was doing that. And I was like, babe, we can afford for you to get a haircut. Thank you very much. This is not going to work. See,
Right.
my poor husband, he's over it by now. He knows I talk about him. But yes, when I first met him, he was doing his own haircuts. That was one thing that had to stop immediately. And, again, if you want to spend 255, but we're talking you need it done every 2 weeks. So then it is turning into a luxury car
Yeah.
payment. And so to each his own, but I had a heart attack when I read that.
Well, and
Heart
I'm
attack.
also the Dave Ramsey in me is thinking if a car goes down in value when you drive it off the lot, do the nails also go
Yeah,
down as soon as you've walked out of the salon?
immediately.
Yeah. Let's invest in things that matter. Doo-dah, doo-dah.
Roxanne and Ace Unlimited with the most incredible guests, and we're super pumped about this one. She is a biblically trained professional licensed counselor, the director of counseling at McLean Bible College in Virginia, serves as a seminary instructor, so she knows her stuff, is a certified level trainer in biblical counseling. We could keep her an hour. We only got a few minutes, but we're super excited to talk about her new book. It's called I'm Stressed, A Path from Pressure to Peace. We welcome the incredible Eliza Huie. Hi there, and welcome to the show.
Oh, that is the sweetest welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Eliza, I think we all can agree that we want this holiday season to be as peaceful as possible. How do we begin on the right foot?
Well, that is a challenge because this season brings a whole lot of stress. And so obviously, you're going to be in the midst of festivities and relationships and seeing people you don't normally see. So I just encourage people to a couple of things. Make time for the things that you need for yourself, meaning, if you make sure you're getting enough sleep, make sure you're getting the still stay with your routines of exercise and good nutrition and so forth. But don't neglect your time in the Word. I don't know about you guys, but oftentimes when things get busy, that can be the first thing that kind of is like, well, I'll get to that a little bit later.
Mhm.
Staying faithful in God's Word and staying in prayer will actually help you be more prepared for those really stressful moments as well.
Eliza, can you help us with what the difference is between stress and anxiety?
Sure, that's a good question, and it's a reasonable question because those terms get like thrown around as similar. They're meaning a lot of times people mean the same thing, and that's okay. But it is helpful to kind of break it up a little bit and determine what are we talking about. So stress is, I actually think it's what we're more comfortable saying than anxiety. We're more comfortable saying, well, I'm stressed rather than I'm anxious, because when we say we're anxious, it kind of has this spiritual connotation to it as well. But stress is really something based on outside circumstances. So maybe it's a test you have to take if you're a student, or maybe it's a job project that you're working on, or maybe it's you're preparing for the holidays. We just had Thanksgiving. So, all of those things can cause stress. And so it's an external pressure that causes your body and your mind to become unsettled. Where anxiety, even though the stressor is removed, those same symptoms remain. So anxiety is more internal. It's more, even in the absence of the trigger, if we can call it that, you still have those symptoms, and it's usually ongoing, more lengthy, and it begins to disrupt your regular day-to-day life. So that's just a very brief way to explain it, but it can kind of help to kind of think one is more internal, one is more externally based.
Well, and I think the holidays too, anxiety tends to, we have in our mind, we want the holidays to be perfect and it has to be great on Christmas morning and we have to have the food perfect and when one thing dominoes into two things, we think it's, blown up, right? So
Yeah.
the flexible, how do we stay flexible or lighthearted when things don't quite go like we want them to, whether it's holiday or otherwise?
So one of the things I'd say to that, and this is something that is hard to learn, and I think, I've lived a good while and I'm still learning it, but to keep our hands open with the things that we have, even the things that we have responsibility for. So those kind of things we can get closed fist around, it's like, okay, I need to do this. And so I get kind of tight-fisted. And that can cause expectations to come in that I expect it to happen a certain way because I'm in control of that, or it's happened this way before, so this is the way it should go. So holding things more loosely, and that is, I will tell you, that is easier said than done, but it really has a reflection of where our heart is with the Lord, because ultimately he does give us things that we're responsible to do, things that we have influence over or that we have that responsibility for. But there are a whole lot of things that we seek to control. Other people's moods, even other people, whether or not people are having a good time.
Mm.
If people aren't enjoying the meal, it becomes something that we put on us. And those expectations for it, like you said, Ace, to be perfect, begin to cause the stress to come in. So holding things with an open hand allows us to kind of, even in that posture, you're ready to give those to the Lord. And where when we close our hands around them, we got these fists and we're ready to fight, whether we're
Yeah.
fighting the people who we're with or we're fighting the Lord for control over things. So keeping an open-handed mindset in your heart with the expectations that you have is really key.
What are some of the things that the Bible tells us in terms of how to deal with stress?
There's actually a lot which I'm encouraged by because the Bible isn't silent on this topic. But one of the things that is so important is that we can remember that we can have peace because God is always with us. And I think of passages of scripture that talk about in Psalms where it talks about that the Lord is an ever-present help in troubled times. So that passage is one. But another one that comes to mind is in Philippians where it talks about that the Lord is near, so we don't have to be anxious for anything. And so I think just keeping those passages of scripture that remind us of God's presence, not only is he there to help us, but he's there very aware of how stressful things feel for us. He is a sympathetic high priest who understands what it's like to have a lot on his plate. And so we can remember that, knowing that not only is he near, but he is that ever-present help in times of trouble.
Well, and I feel like too, when we read the New Testament, we see, Jesus in situations where people were stressed out about, someone was sick or, something was going on. We ran out of food or, the same things that we worry about today, right? Nothing's changed.
Yes.
But he was always that patron saint of chill, right? He was just, why are you so overwhelmed? Let's, and so if nothing else, I want to have that same Christ-like chill because I don't want to. I'm a firm believer that God's kingdom's not rocked by what's happening at the holidays or what's happening
Yeah.
in our jobs or what's happening on social media or in the White House, whatever it is. Like, how do we get to that place of Christ-like chill?
Well, I think of the passage in scripture where it talks about probably the most stressful time in our Lord's life, which is the cross. Going to the
Mm.
cross, we have this picture of him taking on the burden of all that he knew was ahead of him, and then seeing his mother there and his disciples who he loved, and all of that. I mean, that's very stress inducing, I am sure. And we see
Yeah.
that even the night before, just knowing what he was going up to. But when we look at, I think it's in First Peter where it talks about him going to the cross and him setting that example. And it talks about the fact that, in those kind of situations where he was in that circumstance, he was being reviled, he was being accused of things, he was being mocked. And yet it says he opened not his mouth. And the reason why in that situation he could respond so well and be that patron saint of chill, or however you want to describe that, is because what it says in First Peter, it says, but he continued to entrust himself to the one who judges justly. So the way that Jesus kept that disposition of control and calm is not because everything was okay, but because he knew the one who had promised that it would be. He knew him so well, his Father. And so we get to learn that. In fact, in First Peter, where it talks about that, it says, this is your example. That just like Jesus did, we have to walk in those steps, who entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. So when we're feeling overwhelmed, we're feeling like people don't understand us, we're feeling like we have too much on our plate, we need to continue to entrust ourselves to God, who knows what's best. And sometimes that means instead of trying to do everything, we actually take a step back and we say, okay, I can't. I've been created with limitations that make me dependent on a good God. So that's how I would say that's the mindset we want to be in. That's the disposition of our heart. That's the prayer set that we want to be in.
That's absolutely beautiful. I feel better. I do.
Right.
I feel better. What did you say, Ace? The patron
Patron saint of chill.
That needs to be like a bumper sticker or
Yeah.
something, a headline, because that's brilliant. I'm stressed. A path from pressure to peace is a wonderful. It's a little book you can read it. Okay, you can
Mhm.
handle it, and but it's packed full of such useful things about a topic we all probably could use some help with. Stress. We hear a lot about it. Eliza Huie has been our guest. Eliza, people want to get a copy of the book or connect with you, how can they go about that?
The best way to do it is just my name, elizahuie.com. That's my website there. You can connect with me there, send me a message, or look at the books that I have there. I am so thrilled to connect with people. So thank you so much.
Thanks for your wisdoms and your time this week.
All righty. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, we always love to check in on each other's vibes, especially as we head into Christmas. So, Roxanne, what's your vibe for the week?
Bonhoeffer, the new Angel film.
Yeah?
Oh my word. Now, I'm a crier, but wow, it
Yeah.
was sobbing. It's about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the famous German theologian, who, of course, we know was assassinated after becoming a spy, which was the last thing he ever wanted to become. It's brilliantly acted. The ending is shot so beautifully. The look on his, you come unglued. And I cried, and Wayne said, "Oh, I'm changed. I'm going to work on this and this and this." So
Yeah.
powerful movie. I'm so excited that Angel Studios is releasing these incredible, well done films. And this one I highly recommend.
Excellent. Well, my vibe this week is the new book, Brothers, from Alex Van Halen, whereas very much a swan song to his brother Eddie. And what I love is while he tells the stories of, the early, beginnings and, them as kids growing up and their work ethic and the the teachability of standing out was very much embedded into them from their father. Like he was like, if you don't stand out, you might as well be no one. Like he was always about what are you doing to contribute? What are you doing to work your hardest to get better than you were the day before? Like that was the house mentality that they had. And so as you hear all these stories of how Van Halen came together and, the success they were having and, and all the woes that they were going through with the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era, in the end of it, it really was a love letter to his brother. And Alex was never really the outspoken one in, Van Halen's heyday anyway. So to hear the stories through his lens is fantastic. But when it's all said and done, he's like, I'm pissed that my brother's gone, but I love that my brother and I got to do what we got to do and loved it. And I know I'm gonna see him on the other side. Like it's just a beautiful story. Like I don't need to know the Hagar era. Like that's been drugged through the news enough, and like this was his way, especially so many years now that's gone by, to finally hear this from his brother, who was very quiet. Everybody wanted, interviews with Alex after Eddie passed, and he's like, I'm not ready to talk about this yet. And so this was a great way to do that. And in the same way that like when you watch like the Beatles documentaries, everybody thinks it's a documentary about them fighting because it's the end of their time as a band, when really you get to see their friendship, right? And that's what I think this book is you see brothers doing what they love and making each other better. That's why that's because he even tells, I can say this without giving too much of it away. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Alex originally was the guitarist and Eddie was the drummer. But when Alex was busy working, Eddie would pick up his guitar and play. And once Eddie surpassed him as a virtuoso and was creating what was now known as Frankenstein, he's like, well, I'm not going to play that guitar anymore because he's better than me, So he's like, I'm going to take your drum set. Na 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 na. So it's a really good one. So if you know anybody that's a Van Halen fan or a great Christmas gift idea for people that just love rock and roll or a good story, it's really good. So check that out, Brothers by Alex Van Halen. We want to thank you for
wait before we go, because I'm always so jealous of you and all your rock and roll squeezings. I mean, there you are with Elton John squeezed up there with all these megastars. You do know that Eddie Van Halen was right here next to me.
I have heard that story. I've seen the photos. Yes.
I have the photographic proof.
Yes. That I saw them twice in concert. but I never got to meet him. Of course, you never got to go backstage. So that's where you and I can live vicariously through one another. So that's awesome. Thanks to My Brothers Cup and Birmingham Mortgage Group, as well as Eliza Huie, for being a part of this week's show. We hope you have a great weekend now that Christmas and Advent is here. We're looking forward to it. Our 100th episode is coming up. You do not want to miss the big announcement once we hit that. So definitely subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss out. And as always, Roxanne, I love you.
Love you bunches.
You've been listening to Roxanne and Ace Unlimited. To make sure you don't miss future shows, you can subscribe anywhere you like to podcast and catch up on anything you've missed. Find out more at RoxanneandAce.com. Roxanne and Ace Unlimited is a production of Spacebird Media.